Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reimagine with Robin. Thank you for making us part of your day. Reimagine with Robin is a 15-minute conversation with a leader who is reinventing how we interact with the world we live in, from physical spaces to running cafes and more. I'm thrilled to do a three-part series during Women's History Month this month to highlight and honor women who have helped build us up. So I'm going to turn to the audience right now. Can you share with us a woman in your life who's impacted who you are, or just tell us somebody who you admire? As our responses are going to trickle in, I'm going to introduce today's speaker with you, Carolyn Childers, who is the co-founder and CEO of Chief. I'm so happy to have Carolyn here today. I've gotten to know her over the past few years, and I was lucky to be one of the founding members of Chief in New York a couple of years back, and when the community was just 100 women and now grown to over 10,000. So I know this is going to be an amazing conversation. So for those of you who are out there, drop us in any comments or questions along the way as well. But let's get started. So Carolyn, what are you reimagining?
Well, first, I just want to say a big thank you for having me here. It's so fun to have this conversation. I've had the honor of working with you and the GGV team as investors. And so I'm excited to be able to kind of put our conversation out there into the world a little bit more. So thank you for having me. So what am I reimagining? I was particularly excited to be able to kind of join this conversation today or this week, given that it is the first few days of Women's History Month, because what I have been reimagining for the last few years with Chief has been, how do we change the face of leadership? And that has truly been the mission of Chief, which is a professional network that is focused on senior executive women, really with the mission of driving more women into positions of leadership and keeping them there. And the mission of Chief, of changing the face of leadership, is very intentional, because it is both around getting more representation in leadership, as well as how do we make leaders as strong and good as they can be when they get into those seats. And so I'm really excited to reimagine a world where there is greater representation in seats of power, and really helping to bring that diversity of thought and characteristics to what happens in the world.
Can you tell us a little bit more around Chief as a community, and what happens when you're in Chief, and how does leadership get taught, or maybe empowered, or what is that magic behind Chief?
Yeah, so I think for us, what was really important was, you so often, as a senior executive, are expected to have all of the answers. And the reality is that you don't always. Or even if you do have the answers, you need that support system around you to do what you know is the right decision, and to push forward, and to just have the support when it's a hard decision, or things are hard at home that are affecting you in the workplace. And for us, we wanted to create a different type of community that was not just around the high level networking of exchanging business cards, not that business cards exist anymore, but the metaphorical business card, the LinkedIn profile, over very casual conversations, but actually allowing for a deeper community to take place, where true support comes through. And one of the things that I think is kind of the hallmark of the Chief experience is what we call core. It is a peer group model where we have groups of 10 come together. There's an executive coach in the room, and you truly get to work through your biggest and hardest challenges with other people that understand your context. And it has been just amazing to see the impact that has had, of people stretching into new opportunities and supporting each other as they get there. And it has been we're only 3 years old as a company, and it's been amazing to kind of see what that change has been. And we've started by focusing on senior executive women, because our belief, as we talk about reimagining the world, is there are 5 million women who are VP level and above in the US. So there's a lot of women who are in positions of influence, and if we can just get more of them into true influencers and being able to create those ripple effects within each of their organizations, that was how we imagined the greatest ability for us to drive broader change around representation and leadership.
I think, I've been in core and with my core group for a couple of years now. And sometimes we talk about these hot topics each time we meet. And it's what's top of your mind? What are you struggling with right now? Like you said, it's not just about networking, but actually a support system. And what I've actually come to find is like, whenever I bring up or anyone brings up a topic, we're like, oh, we're going through the same thing, right? It's like you're not alone, which I feel like a lot of times as a female leader who is growing up through the ranks, right? Like you face a lot of things that are actually very relatable to everybody else, and everyone else is trying to solve the problem together. So it's amazing to have that group together.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really thought about hard at the beginning of Chief was, what is the right group to bring together in that core group? And we debated, do you bring people together that are in the same industry or the same function? And ultimately what we realized is that what most leaders are all working through are people issues. And that doesn't matter which function you're in, which industry you're in. It's about you, it's about your team, and it's about, that journey that you're going on together. And so what has been beautiful has actually been kind of the cognitive diversity that we bring into those rooms of people from very different experiences that all get your context, but just have such a different perspective that actually, I think, really challenges people to think about things in new ways, and support and challenge each other.
Totally agree. And, I was part of the core groups and Chief pre-COVID. And of course, we all know what happened. But this leads to my question is like, how does tech enable Chief? And I feel like this matters more than ever now. And maybe you could just talk us through like what changed and how you view tech as an integral part of Chief.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what tech has done for Chief is what tech, when it does good, does for so many, which is it does allow for like a democratization of access to some degree, and the ability to tap into things in ways that are more convenient for people and more accessible at times for people. And I think about who our members are, and we often will joke, but it's kind of serious, that it's like the movie trope of like the busy woman. And one of our core values from the very beginning when we started Chief was time travel, which was both like a higher level order of it's going to take us 200 years before there's equal representation in leadership for women, and how do we time travel that 200 years? But it's also the micro brand value of, if somebody is coming in and giving us 2 hours of their time for core, how do we make it the most impactful 2 hours? How does everything that we do at Chief allow for biggest impact with the probably most valuable resource that our members are giving us, which is their time? And I think tech is such an unlock for us, that you no longer have to, have an hour-long commute there and back of going to your core group. You now are able to tap into this. It allows for a much more, like I said, democratized access to core and all of our services. And it's been really amazing to see how much engagement has actually been able to go up as we made that those investments. And I'm really excited about what it can do in the future as well, because I think we are very aware of the reality that we were in a very isolated place for a long time. The world is opening up again. We feel it from our members. We feel it from like the world at large, that people are really craving connection. And I think tech can be such a way of unlocking the right people to meet who are hyper local to you, that you can like start to build some of that in-person connection. And that can be very tech enabled as well. So I think that there's such magic that I hope we can continue to unlock. And, we are excited of what's to come in this year.
Yeah, I'm actually like very addicted to the app. I think I'm always in these social communities with the other female leaders here. And actually another woman that I met turns out to be like one of my neighbors now. And we're getting together, brainstorming what we're going to do in the town in Jersey nearby for next month. And we had a meetup like a couple months ago. So it's amazing to expand our networks, both like professionally, but also socially at the same time.
Yeah.
I guess, why do you think this is really happening now? Like, I think there's been this huge catalyst, and like, what are these underlying trends that you're seeing, and why is Chief more important than ever?
Yeah. I guess I am an optimist at heart. I think that there is a lot that has happened over the last few years that have been real struggles and real hard times, but I actually feel like some of that has opened up a great dialogue that now, for the first time, I feel like leaders and companies are truly starting to understand how important it is, not just in focusing on representation, but also in investing in their people. And I just think we've hit a new paradigm of what that looks like. And I think through all misfortune comes opportunity. And I think the playbooks of companies have had to be thrown out the window over the last few years, that they can reimagine what that investment in their team looks like. And people can reimagine how to invest in themselves and like what they want to be, and kind of take some of these bolder leaps. And so I do feel like there has been just a awakening among leaders of the importance that people are in their teams. And my hope is that companies continue to invest in their leaders and allow them to participate in something like Chief that truly does provide real support and community for leaders that they have all stated they want more of in their leadership ranks.
As you're capitalizing on this trend where a lot of people are investing in themselves and realizing they have permission to do that as well, both personally, like recognizing that and within their own families, but also by their mentors and their superiors and the board as well. And so I'm really excited about this national launch that you guys have done recently. And I think that also changed the game in terms of how many chiefs are out there and how many of the 5 million you're starting to tackle. And so, how will our world be changed by Chief in the next 5 to 10 years in your vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think about just the impact that the community had on each other when it was 100 people. And I just think that amplifies so much now that we're 10,000 members, we are, across the US. I am so inspired about the idea of what this community can do together and the change that it can drive more broadly when we are, across every city in the nation and thousands of members. And, I think that there is truly that ripple effect that we have been wanting to create from day one. And I think the national launch is a great way to us continue to take that step forward, while always at our heart making sure that we are investing in everybody's individual experience and continuing to invest in that experience, because I just have such gratitude for the people that have been with us since day one.
10,000 is not a small number, but in the 5 million, it seems like a drop in the bucket. But like, if you actually think about 10,000, that's almost a small city, right? Like in the suburbs maybe. And then, if we, what's 50,000? That's already bigger than a lot of tech companies.
Yeah.
And if you reach 1 million, that's like a big city. So it will be very incredible in how the world will look differently by chiefs.
Yes. Yes. I'm excited for what's to come. And to any of our members that are listening or watching, a big thank you for going on this journey with us, and hope that particularly this month, it's Women's History Month, but at Chief, we rebranded it to Women's Future Month because we're both wanting to honor what happened in the past, but really start to think about what we can do in the future and what is possible. So it felt perfectly timed to come on Reimagined with Robin.
I guess the one last question around Reimagine is, how are you reimagining yourself as a leader this year? and also maybe this other question I always wanted to ask is what made you decide to make that jump to be CEO? You've been in a lot of leadership roles. I know I've met a lot of other chiefs who've taken that jump or wanting to make that jump. And so maybe you could share some insights on that as well.
Yeah, I think to me, it wasn't about CEO in particular, and it was more about, I've been a senior executive at many startups, and I've seen and been a part of the journey of things, growing, but I've never been in the seat of the entrepreneur. And I knew for myself that the retiring at some point down the line and not have taken that jump and that risk, there would always be that what if in my mind. Because at the end of the day, I think there's just something so magical about being able to create a company, a brand, an experience that lives by your values. And it was just such an exciting thing for me to be able to do. I didn't know what it was going to be. And I think that was kind of what kept me from doing it earlier. And as the idea of Chief came to mind, when you start something, you better be ready to live and breathe it day in and day out. And I cannot think of a better mission and group of people to be able to do this with. And I don't know, I just feel incredibly grateful to be able to work on a mission like this day in and day out.
Well, thank you for having us to be a part of that journey. I think one of the things about Chief is that we all are a work in progress, and not to be too hard on ourselves, and really support each other as we all grow together. So looking forward to be under your leadership, both as a member and sidekick investor.
Yeah, love it.
Well, we're already at time, unfortunately. So thank you so much for everyone who tuned in today. This is part 1 of 3. We're going to have other Chief community members join us for part 2 and part 3. So please stay tuned, follow us for more. And thank you again, Carolyn.
Thank you, Robin.